It is No Gifts Please, the parenting podcast by the pair with no real gifts, but a whole lot of gumption. Hey everyone, I'm Steve Noviello.
Hello. I'm Jenny and Chondo.
Always lovely to see you.
You too. I need to remind our audience about something.
What?
We know people are listening, but y'all need to leave reviews and ratings.
You know what? It's funny. People email me all the time about the show. Girlfriends will say, oh my gosh, I listened to you on my way to whatever today. Thank you so much, whatever. But yes, that does get us higher into the rotation and so on and so forth.
So it helps more people to be able to listen to the podcast. So anyway, if you're on here, if you're like at a stoplight or maybe you're like at your kid's soccer practice and you're waiting for them to be let out, just like go on and leave the review.
Yeah. I mean, not at the stoplight, but onest you're comfortably parked safely.
I mean, you do you. Listen,
somewhere.
We need them. Okay. Safety first, though.
Okay. So I'm excited about today's guest that we have on the show. Again, we always try and bring people on here that can benefit our listenership. Today is all about learning, really, and tutoring.
But like a much spicier version of it, in my opinion. So we kind of scoured to find who is helping these kids to succeed on the side, because there's this big, I don't want to call it underworld, but there's this big extra world outside of schools that's doing tutoring and helping students to get into the schools that they want to get into or that their parents want them to get into. And so Ashley Sorial is the founder of Sunshine Learning in Dallas. They're a tutoring and academic consulting business specializing in private school admissions and long-term academic strategies. So it's Ashley along with 50 other tutors, if that gives you any idea of just the magnitude, the demand in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So she was actually a pre-K teacher for 8 years before launching Sunshine Learning. And then she saw firsthand the need for just really that individualized one-on-one instruction. Ashley, welcome. So good to have you.
Yes,
it's good to see you. I do want to start with kind of one question, which I think a lot of people have when they hear, and we experience this in our school when we go to a public school, even getting into programs and tutoring to get into programs. What do you say to the people who are listening, who are saying, listen, if your kid needs a rigorous tutor to get into a private school, that's not the place for them because they're not going to succeed once they get there?
Correct. I would 100% agree with that.
Oh, really?
Yes. I feel like there is a certain culture and a lot of parents are stuck on the name and the prestige of a school.
Okay.
And getting in is the first part. What you want to do is you want to set your child up for success. So once they're in, you still want them to be able to succeed. Now, the private school application process has become so competitive just because there's a huge spike in numbers of what we're seeing. During COVID, a lot of parents saw what was happening in public schools and became very unhappy with it. Mm-hmm. And so there's just been a huge increase in number of applications. And so they're having to create this cohesive class in a way. And a lot of times where they're coming from, the preschool, parents get nervous about hearing that they need a tutor for their 3 and 4-year-old. It's not so much more about remediation. It's more about coaching confidence, helping with separation from parents, things like following directions, things like that, and exposing them to information. Now, with the older kiddos, what we see is generally a lot of kids that need over prepping or a lot of prepping. They won't get into the school that they're looking at.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what we tell parents is don't focus on that name, the prestige of that school. Focus on where your child is going to become a confident and capable learner and leader.
I love that you're looking at that kind of a two-pronged approach there because I do. First of all, I grew up on the North Shore of Long Island in New York. All of the public schools were excellent. Mm-hmm. I mean, these are blue ribbon schools of excellence. I mean, just some of the best schools in the country even. And to live in Dallas-Fort Worth where there is not the best public school culture, depending on where you live. It was otherworldly to me, the number of people who send their children to private school here. So it's so refreshing to hear you say, listen, if you're trying to coach your kid to get into a school, you're doing it wrong. What you need to do is coach them and support them to stay in a school once they're in.
Yes. And again, we always say getting in is just the beginning. You want to be able to keep up with everyone. And so a lot of our kids are with us one of the very first kids that I tutored was in pre-K 4. He's now in 5th grade. We worked with them. We've seen babies brought home from the hospital, things like that. We stay with our families throughout the entire journey.
So let's talk about that 3.5-year-old or even younger. Yeah. That was when Brighton actually did her application for her school. She was 3.5 and it was during COVID. Yes. So right when
strange time.
And there are stories of one twin getting in and not the other, of teachers' children not getting admitted, of long alumni, big donors. Yes. It is so incredibly competitive.
Yes.
It is wild. I had no idea people were like truly, because I'm not from here either.
Yeah.
I had no idea people were doing tutoring for this with that.
Yes.
With those young ages.
So in your situation, I feel like ignorance is bliss. You had
totally
no idea.
But I have another one now.
Yes. And so now you know too much.
Now I know too much.
Yeah.
We see that a lot, and parents get panicked and they just want to provide that second child with every opportunity possible. So then that's when they reach out to us and it's like, hey, okay, he's 3.5, your child's 4. They should not be reading, but let's get them to know their letters, identify some numbers, counting, cutting paper, writing their name, things like that. And also the biggest piece is following directions and also separating from mom and dad when they're that young. They want to see that separation piece.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I've heard of people, and it's so heartbreaking. Like, one sibling goes and then the second sibling is not able to stay for the observation. And so they can't evaluate. And so it's a no-go sometimes if they can't, if the student is just really tight with mom and dad and not able to do the separation, they have no way of evaluating it. So what does that look like? I mean, I can't even believe I'm asking this, to tutor a 3-year-old.
Yeah. So what we do is we come to homes, we go in home, and, we pair the right tutor with the right family. I like to go out, especially for early childhood. I like to go out and meet the kid first. So that way we get a real understanding of where they should be looking at for schools, where would be a good fit, where wouldn't be a good fit. And then the tutor will come. It's very play-based. It's not traditionally what you think of, like worksheets, pencils, all of that. It's very hands-on activities. There's a lot of manipulatives. There may be M&Ms involved for making patterns, counting, things like that. The kids don't even realize that they're learning because we make it so fun. That's really what it looks like. It's very hands-on.
Are there certain preschools that are not going to prepare young ones for either entry into a pre-K to do well in a public pre-K or kinder, or will not prepare them for admission into a private school in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
It's just a different experience. There's a lot of preschools that are play-based and they want to stay that way. But then we have some other preschools that are going more traditional, academically rigorous, that take pride in preparing those kids for those more competitive schools. So it really is just the experience the family has at each individual school.
But is there one type that helps them to prepare and one that doesn't?
Like you're saying, like a Montessori
right,
versus...
that's what I'm wondering. Like
we're not asking for names.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I would say Montessori, the Montessori approach is very student-led. It's very child-centered, things like that, and very hands-on. Only a certain type of child
will thrive
in that environment. It's either really, really good or it's a disaster in Montessori. But generally those Montessori kids that do well with that type of program, they will do well at any of the private schools in Dallas.
Yeah.
But it really is. Also, too, with the play-based approach, that's where we kind of come in and we supplement a lot with academics, just so that child is on par with the other kids that she's applying with. Yeah. Because also, too, you have to think about the class, who you're applying with that year. One school might have 300 kids applying for 32 spots, and, they can't have too many community members, which are siblings and alumni. They can't have too many 130 IQs, things like that. So there are a lot of different dynamics that are at play when they're applying for those early entry years.
Well, I think that also it's important to understand that, listen, these private schools are prestigious because not everybody gets in.
Exactly.
Like the harsh reality here is perhaps your child is not qualified to go to this school. I mean, we went to a preschool and we didn't know. I mean, we went because somebody at work recommended it and it was down the street from work. I mean, one of our kids walked out of there knowing how to read when he was 4 years old, right? Yeah. Because that's who he is academically, right? Yes. The other one thought he could fly. You know what I mean? Yeah, like they're very different kids here. I do want to touch on something that you mentioned earlier, kind of playing devil's advocate. You mentioned one of the first kids that you were tutored was pre-K when you started, and now is in 5th grade and you still work with them. For the person who's tuning in and saying, well, wait a second, if that kid ultimately did get into the most appropriate private school for them, why do they still need a tutor?
I mean, their parents have just seen the success that we've done and the value of the work that we do, that they've just wanted to stay with us. That's generally our family's experience. And also, too, our clientele generally are 2 working parents. They have a nanny, and a lot of times when the kids get older, the nanny can't sit and do homework with them anymore, or the parents can't. Yeah. I mean, me, even as a teacher, I wouldn't be able to do 5th grade math. It's just so different from whenever we did it. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm definitely planning on having tutors for my kids.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
And also,
that's
too, it takes away that a lot of parents had a bad experience when they were a child. Like, I remember I had a client be like, my dad used to sit down and read with me, and I hated every moment of it, and it ruined our relationship. Yeah. And so she was like, I don't want that to be my child's experience. And so that's why they.
But I think that for a kid as well, sometimes like we sit down and we do homework with our first grader, our third grader, his is all done. Yes. He does it at aftercare. The first grader, we sit down, it's a little bit of, not a fight, but we got to pick, he always picks the easy ones first. So then by the end of the month, when we're doing the harder ones, it's like, Yeah. But to your point, he also knows that on Sundays we sit down, it's homework time. That's what we do. I would imagine for some of these kids as well, having somebody who, listen, when you go to see this person, this is what you do. It's academic. This is, and whereas with a parent, I think that a kid sometimes respects the dynamic with a professional sometimes more than mom and dad, because they don't feel the freedom to push back like they might with mom and dad of, I don't want to do this. I'm bored. I'm tired. I want to watch TV instead. I want to, whatever.
Yeah. We had a little girl who's in pre-K 4 right now. And I actually personally worked with her last year, and her mom started doing homework with her, and she looked at her, she's like, I'm so confused. You're not Miss Ashley. Why are you trying to teach me? You're my mom. So that just shows that right there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that totally makes sense. So this is the thing that I ponder often, kind of jumping off what Steve said, like, okay, you want your child to get into the appropriate school for them. So I think, okay, well then I'm not going to do anything on the outside in that next step, right? Because a lot of, some Dallas private schools go all the way through high school, and some there's a breaking off point at 4th grade or 5th grade, 8th grade. And so what's the percentage like of my peers that are having their children prep for that next step?
A lot of them.
I'm like the only one that's not doing it. Okay.
And also too, it's
this is actually why you're here.
No, I appreciate the honesty, because I feel like nobody's talking to me about it. And
no, I mean, we've had people when we were testing for tag, we had a friend, I said, oh gosh, he came close. We have to appeal. And I said, how your son did great. She said, well, we had a tag tutor to take the test. And I was like, wait a minute, we could have tutored for the test. I thought this was just a standard measure of aptitude.
It's really funny because decisions go out this year on March 13th. And so Friday the 13th. And so a lot of times our biggest referral time is March and April, because all of the families that got in kept quiet what they were doing. And then they get into these schools and parents are like, what were you doing? So that's when we have a big wave of referrals, because people want to keep it really personal. Like, they don't want anyone to, or they also don't want anyone.
I'm not mad at all my friends that are listening that are not telling me that they're tutoring, but.
Yeah, no. And the schools know it too, know. So, but there's also a difference between, because I meet with all of the schools and I talk to them about this. I'm like, hey, like when I first started this, I was like, hey, like, are these services frowned upon? All that. They're like, no, we know that different families have different needs. There is a difference between tutoring to an IQ test, which we do not do, and tutoring academics, which would be learning to read, early literacy, math, things like that.
Well, and you're also looking at a level of commitment, right? I mean, you want people going to your schools who are super committed to education, and really good hiring partners. A teacher or hiring a tutor is, maybe you can name names, maybe you can't, but you were talking earlier, hey, there are different schools that are going to fit different personality of kid better. I mean, anything come to mind where you're like, gosh, if you've got,
really good question.
Super creative kid, like maybe you're not at, and again, I don't know anything about any of these schools, but like maybe you're not at St. Mark's, maybe you're at Lamplighter, maybe you're at, are there any of them where you're like, gosh, this is something that I wish people knew about the type of school they should be applying to in terms of their kids' personality?
Yeah, the most academically rigorous are going to be very high-pressured environments. So if you have a very anxious child, those schools are probably not where they're going to thrive. It's kind of like a pressure cooker, and it never stops. Kids that we see generally that do kind of have that anxiety piece or more of a creative outlet that don't fit in those boxes do better at a school that has sports and that is well-rounded, that has a fine arts program, all of those different components. They tend to do really, really well. So you have to think about, is my child anxious? Would they do well at this type of environment? Right. Do they thrive under pressure? And if the answer is yes, in those top schools that you're probably thinking of, that.
Well, we had friends of ours that we were talking about their son who goes to a certain private school that's very well known in Dallas. I said, how's it going? They said, we're having a great experience. I said, does he like it? He said he likes it. He's in tears every night doing homework.
Yes, we've had those experiences too, especially
and I was
during
like,
COVID.
What? Like that doesn't sound like a good time.
Yeah, no, and also too, parents. My biggest thing is, don't get stuck on prestige and name of the school.
That's hard in Dallas.
Yeah, it's really hard.
I'm sure it's hard anywhere.
It's not hard if you're not from here.
True. true.
Ignorance is bliss.
But even like somebody whose kids go to private school, whose kids go to public school, who's not even like explored this, I could tell you, I mean, I could name the top 4, right?
Yeah,
where everyone's like, oh, those are the ones, right?
But there's plenty of kids that are going to, going to those schools that are not the top ones. The kids are thriving. Thriving. It's parents get so stuck on, I went to that school, I want my child to have the same experience. I do hear that a lot. Yes. Yeah, we hear that a lot. And so it's more of just casting a wide net when you're applying. And then hopefully when decisions come out, you go back and retour and you're like, okay, what is the best school for our child now? And I always tell parents too, it's not about one school being better than the other. It's about what is the right fit for your child and your family at this time.
How big of a part should kind of for future tripping here be? Like, for example, I have a colleague or someone who used to be a colleague of mine whose daughter went to a great private school, and it was academically rigorous. I mean, she's now a surgeon. I mean, it all worked out very well in the end. But like senior year, they were like, you know what? Like, you're not getting enough AP classes in this school because it is so academically rigorous. We're going to pop you out. You're going to go back to public school and graduate at the top of your class. And now, so like when we're talking about academically rigorous, like some of these schools that it's so high pressure and you're the best of the best of the best, should I be thinking about, okay, do I want you to be surrounded by 100 other boys that are all trying to get into Harvard, or maybe only 50 of them are, and you're going to rise to the top?
Yeah. A lot of times too, what we hear is one of the biggest transitions when those kids go to those very academically rigorous, they realize they're not the smartest kid in the room anymore. They're surrounded by all of that. Think of like the top 2% of Dallas.
And what does that do for their psyche?
Some of them thrive and some of them crumble. So some of them just like need more nurturing. And also too, kids that have that high level of intelligence can generally be very hard on themselves, can be very sensitive, can be very perfectionist, all of that, very in tune with their emotions.
Especially if that's their identity.
Yes.
Right. And now suddenly, oh, guess what? You're actually the 50th smartest, right? Because all these other kids are brilliant too. And that doesn't make you less smart. It just means that Johnny over here is even smarter than you are,
Yes, no, definitely.
What does it look like when somebody's working with you? Is it like a one-off? Is it every day after school? Is it twice a month?
Good question.
Yeah, no, it's usually once a week, tutoring wise. And then during admission season, which, starts in April, applications open up after Labor Day. But some families will reach out to me, hey, we didn't get the results that we wanted. My kid got waitlisted everywhere and I don't want to move to Park Cities. That's kind of a big thing too, is we have families that live in Midway Hollow or Devonshire, Preston Hollow. They have a beautiful home. They don't want to move. And so the pressure is really on them at that age, at pre-K4 and
literally
kindergarten at
3.5
to get into a school.
4.5, 5.5.
A lot of times too, parents will say, hey, we only want to apply to these three schools. If they do not get in, we're fine with moving to Park Cities. But generally what will happen is a tutor will work with them once a week through admission season. If they're working with me on the consulting piece, we meet on Zoom as needed, as much hand-holding as they need. There's different options. We create a list of schools. I help with parent statements, all of that. And then also to kind of analyzing that test piece score, because when they have to take what's called the WIPSI, which tests different areas of functioning, processing speed, fluid reasoning, all of that. And they see the word average come back. And they're like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with average? I'm like, there's nothing wrong with average. 50% of the population has to be average.
Yeah, right.
And it's really just educating them on that test, what that looks like. And hey, this test may not be the best representation. We're really not supposed to be assessing children's IQs until age 7. And your child just turned 4.
Yeah. Which ages do they take that particular test?
Starting at 3.5.
Starting at 3.5.
Incredible.
Yes. And some
and
schools,
up until...
it's usually stops second grade.
Okay.
But a lot of times parents will have had it done. Like when they're applying out for 4th and 5th, they'll go and do it privately just as another data point to have to submit to schools.
Oh my word.
Interesting.
Yes.
And they can get that done, like privately? You just pay to get it done?
Yes. But there is it's called CATS. It's the business that is kind of partnered with the private schools where the families will go to. That's like, if you go to the school's website and you see the application need, that is what it'll link you to.
It's like Champions for your real estate license.
Isn't WIPSI is the test. Is the test that when I hear people saying the CATS test, or I know of that.
Yes.
But okay.
And how far in advance? So if you said applications open around Labor Day,
it's that Monday. It's that Tuesday.
So if I'm thinking, okay, I probably should sign my kid up for some of this tutoring. How far in advance should I be? I mean, should I be thinking I'm going to spend a full year with you before application?
I would say the beginning of the school year at the latest. We have a lot of coming in. So think of it, April is when decisions
for the following year or for Labor Day that year?
For Labor Day that year.
Oh, so that's only a few weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, you want to start with us then and then stay with us through observations, which go through the end of January.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes they dip into February because we always have a week of snow.
Right.
We do.
And that's always that's for the older kids too. Is that the same timeline? I love the timeline question for people who are wanting to, okay, we went to maybe a public school, and now in high school, we're considering a private school.
I would say
when would you do that?
I would say for the IC, if they have to take the IC exam, which is what they will be required to do, it needs to be a full school year. So like we have a lot of kids starting with us now in February that will go with us until the next school year when testing is done. So it's basically a full year to prepare, because also too, if you're waiting in such a short amount of time, like in October or November for IC, it's like cramming.
Yeah.
And it's really stressful. And a lot of parents don't know that you can take the IC in 3 different times and 3 different seasons, and you can submit the better score to the school.
Interesting.
So we can kind of, if we have that year, we can we have timelines to play
retest.
with.
Gotcha. It just totally slipped my mind what I was going to ask you.
I hate when that happens. I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
I do remember. So again, not being too familiar with the private school. So the kind of rules of thumb for parents who may be super new to this, and this is their first exposure, what the largest admitted class is for first grade, and then I'm assuming 5th, 8th, or does it depend on the school?
It depends on the school, but for some of the schools that offer pre-K 3, that's usually a big admit year for siblings because they've already got a brother or sister at the school. I would say pre-K 4 and kindergarten are your biggest years.
Okay.
When you're getting into first, there's generally less than 5 spots.
Oh, wow.
At a lot of the schools. And so a lot of times too, what we see parents doing is, we're so happy at our preschool, we don't want to leave until we absolutely have to.
I totally get that.
And so they stay through kindergarten, but then
you have to.
That kindergarten year is really stressful because it's really hard to tune out the noise from all the other parents of who's
and
doing
they're bonding
what.
And they're making friends with their new class.
Yeah. And so then they have to leave, or they're going to have to move.
And is it open again in middle school and high school?
Yeah, generally again in 5th grade, because there's a school that ends at 4th grade. And so those graduates, it's a big opening year for 5th graders. Yeah, so 5th grade and then 8th and 9th.
Okay, so where can people find you? Where can they learn more? What is there a website, an Instagram? Tell me all the things.
So there's an Instagram, Sunshine Learning Dallas, and then there's a website, sunshinelearningdallas.com. So they can reach out through either of those. We've got social media manager that always sends things. And then on the website, if you just click learn more, it'll direct you. I'll get an email straight from anyone.
This may be difficult to quantify because we talk about several different lengths and stuff, but if you can ballpark it for people who are listening and saying, this sounds amazing, how many digits does this number have that this is going to cost me? And are we talking this is a 4-digit number, a 5-digit number? I mean, I know we've talked about everything from 3 months to a year or so.
Yeah, I mean, I would think of it as like a 4-digit number. Yeah. Okay. It's definitely on market. It's not unreasonable. Yeah. But yeah, it's one of those
listen, if you're paying $30,000 a year for first grade,
exactly,
a 4-digit number is well within, the correct perspective there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
This has been great. Please come back again. I feel like we could talk to you for an hour.
I totally agree. Actually, thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Thanks for having me.
And we gave the website.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
perfect.
Yes,
this is why I don't go to private school.
Yes.
Me either. Oh my gosh. It's so interesting. I have this thought back and forth with myself all the time. Like, if you have to study so much for something, are you really ready for it? That's sort of what I go back and forth on. Like, if you had to prep so hard for this, can you really get in? But then when you hear that everybody's doing this,
well, it's just like with sports for kids, right? Like the number of people that I know whose 6 and 7-year-old children have private sports coaches. Not everybody is LeBron James. That's just how it is.
But their kids are. And so is mine.
But mine aren't.
Wait, hold on. Jacob actually was LeBron James that one day at We Rock the Spectrum.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So,
right. And listen, and he rocked it, and
he
was better than the 3-year-olds that were there because he was, he was 6, right?
I was impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great. Listen, I think that the private school culture in Dallas is otherworldly, and again, we live in a neighborhood where people move to go to public school.
Totally.
And even there's a lot of kids that are like, all right, I'm leaving, I'm going to St. Mark's, I'm going to Hockaday, I'm going, to wherever else. So it's good information. I think that people are everybody's curious. And I do think, to your point, there is a lot of, I'm keeping this secret either so it's to my advantage, or I'm keeping it secret so you don't know that my kid had to get tutored to get in. Like it's two sides of the same coin.
Yeah. Thanks to my friends that didn't tell me. And thanks to the one who did.
But Brighton got in. I mean, I remember when she took the thing and you were like, they asked her how to spell her last name or something.
You guys,
and you had no idea that they were going to do that.
During COVID, I hope I don't get kicked out of the school for sharing this information, but we did her audition. I keep saying audition, but that's because of the business admissions thing during COVID. So it was by video. So we were able to see what they asked, which is top secret information, as I understand. But yeah, they asked some things that were truly comical for a 3.5-year-old. But I told Ashley, Brighton was she was so charming on camera. She could not write her first and last name, by the way, at 3.5. But she was so darling and so charming, and she really tried. And she got into the one school that we applied to. But now I know better for Gemma. We're going to cast the wide net. We're going to do the things.
When we did assessment for kindergarten, and not for just to see what teacher you'd probably jive with, the kids came out, I remember Jacob came out and he said, I said, what did they ask you? And he said, just some questions and stuff. I said, well, like what? And he said, well, we did rhyming. And I said, well, what did you have to rhyme? He said, they asked me what rhymes with duck. And I held my breath.
Great. They're like, who are the cool kids?
I held my breath. I was like, oh God, how's my language been around the house? All right. We want to remind you a new podcast episode drops every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Do click like and subscribe and leave a review if you can, so that we can continue doing what we love to do, which is bring you some great parenting content. And if you do nothing else today, go find yourself a friend you don't need to clean the house for. We'll see you next time.